Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to talk about the fact I am assigning you a project tonight, which is project one, right? Now, I think it's going to be pretty easy for you guys to do because we're basically going to go through it tonight, and then you guys will just be able to enhance it. You'll have a week to go ahead and enhance it and turn it in next week. But let me go ahead and go through all the steps that you're going to do for project one. Of course, you'll add your own creativity and everything to it. And then I'll show you the project assignment, which is basically to do all this stuff, right? So the first part is, to build a website structure, which we've done already. The next part is to put in content. Now, in order to put in content, you're going to have to use some additional software, like, for example, Photoshop, right? So you can use whatever program you want. Photoshop's a good one to use. And if you can, please start up Photoshop right now on your computers. Just go down to the Windows button in the lower left, click on that. Go to All Programs, then go to Adobe Master Collection, and then Photoshop. Go ahead and launch Photoshop. Is anyone in here, does everyone in here pretty much know how to use Photoshop? You're just a little iffy? Okay. What about, do you know how to use Illustrator or any of those programs? Okay. You can do the same thing I'm about to do in Adobe Illustrator if you want, if you're not comfortable with Photoshop, right? You can also use Corel, GIMP, which is a free Photoshop version, virtually Microsoft Paint, whatever you want, okay? But let's just do it in Photoshop here. So what I want you to do, and if you, what?
Just CS6, there's CS6 and there's 64-bit.
We are 64-bit machine.
Just use the CS6, the regular one. We're 64-bit machines? Okay.
But it doesn't really matter.
Okay.
It'll do both.
Okay, so what you want to do now is you want to go up to the File drop-down menu, and you want to click on the New button that comes up underneath that. And in this window that pops up, you're going to create the dimensions of the file that you're going to make. So click down here in the width box and type 960, and then come over to the right and change that to pixels. Then go into the height and change it to 100. And then come down to the resolution, and we're creating something for the web, so what will the resolution be? For the web, for the internet, what is the resolution? 72. 72 pixels per inch is the resolution for all images on the web, except for super high resolution images for like Apple Retina displays. Okay, and then up here at the top where it says name, go ahead and call this header. Now, Photoshop is really the go-to program for most image editing and especially for web design. Okay, so now what you should see is the name header here, 960 width pixels, 100 pixels, 72 for the resolution. What about color mode?
RGB.
RGB, why?
It's web.
It's right, when you're making images for the web, you make them in the RGB color space because that's what computers use. A red, green, and a blue light combined to create all the colors that we see on the web. Now, if we were going to be doing print, what would we change this to?
CMYK.
Which stands for what?
Cyan something.
Cyan something. Exactly. That's how I do it. Cyan something.
Magenta.
Let's hope there's not a test. Okay.
Yellow and
Cyan, magenta, yellow, and black.
okay.
Cyan, magenta, yellow, and black. Black used to be spelled with a K at the beginning. No, it didn't. Black is what's called a key color. A key color. That's where the K comes from. And what it is it's just like your printer. If you've ever opened up your printer, especially like the Epson printers, or you might have 3 or 4 different toner cartridges. A cyan, right, which is a light blue, magenta, which is a light red, yellow, which is yellow, and then a black toner cartridge. And of course, it prints in sequence: cyan, magenta, yellow, and then black overprints everything to draw the dark lines. That's how we get all of our physical prints. RGB are little color dots that combine together to give us color. By the way, I say this in almost every class I'm in, so if you've had one of my classes, forgive me, but one of the differences between RGB and CMYK is RGB color, which is what you're seeing up here on the screen, is what's called additive color. And what that means is a red, green, and a blue light add together and combine to produce the color. Plus, that color has a light source behind it, a white light behind it that's shining through, so the colors are very bright, right? That explains why when you see images on the web, they're very bright, right? However, if we go to CMYK color, which is what was used to print this, right? CMYK color is the opposite. Instead of being an additive process, it's what's called a subtractive process, okay? And what that means is out here in the real world, there is sunlight, right? And light created by artificial things like these bulbs. And that is a white light. And that white light contains all of the colors in the spectrum, right? Well, this book right here, that white light hits it, and everywhere where we did this print of this sort of magenta color, right? The white light bounces off of this, and this book absorbs or subtracts every color of that white spectrum except for the magenta, which it reflects back to you. Okay? So this is what's called a subtractive process. It subtracts all the color except for the one it wants to show you. This is an additive process where it's adding colors together. This is subtractive. This also explains why if you take an image like this and you try to take it and put it up on the web, it looks dull, right? It looks dull because it was printed in the real world and everything looks a little dull in the real world compared to the super brightness of the computer screen, right? And the opposite is true too. If you, and this explains why your printouts that you get out of your printer don't look as good as they do on the screen. When you create something on the screen, it looks great because it's an additive process of colors being added together and there's a white light behind it. Boom, it's brilliant. When you print it out, it flattens it out. Now it becomes a subtractive color process and there's no white light shining behind it. So it's flat, right? So this sort of explains the difference between print and web, and it's important because there will be times when you create graphics for both, and this will explain why it looks better on the web, brighter and more flat out in the real world. Yes?
What if a customer requires a spot color?
Okay, does anybody know what a spot color is? I know you do. Or I'm hoping you do.
It's a color that's not created by CMYK. It's like an extra.
Very good. Anna says it's a color that's not created by CMYK. In other words, it can't be created by the combination of those four colors. So they have to bring an additional color into the process. So that might be a fifth color, right? Which is called a spot color. So let's say IBM was printing business cards and they wanted their special Pantone 5630 blue, you know, because that's their color. Then you would have to actually have the printer mix up that color, right? Now, when it comes to spot colors, a printer would actually mix that color. And when it comes to spot colors in Photoshop, you can actually go out into your color palette, your color swatches, and bring up a Pantone library of colors and bring in the spot color that you need, right? But the same principle applies. Yeah. Okay, so a little sidestepping there, but hopefully that'll benefit you. Okay, so once you have all of these settings in here, let's go ahead and hit OK. Okay, and so now a little box appears inside Photoshop, a file, which is the actual size of the header that we made in our HTML document. So whatever graphic we put in here, we can just stuff that right into the div for the header, which I erased over here, and that will be our header, right? So we're going to put a little graphic in here. We can put anything we want. I tend to put animals in. I don't know what the psychological ramification of that is, but I guess it's better than some other things, right? So open up a Google, open up a web browser, go to your favorite search engine. Mine is Google. And then do a search for some type of image, anything you want. If you have an idea what you might do for Project 1, then you can do it. Here's an animal. I always pick cows. I don't know why. Okay. So find an image. Try and get a big image, one that's at least 960 pixels wide. If you roll your mouse over them in Google, it will tell you down here what the size of them is. Click on that image and make sure you are able to get the big version of that image. You might have to click on it a couple times to get to the page. Yeah.
View image, it'll actually be max.
Okay, if I click View Image, okay, there's the great. Okay, so now I'm going to right-click on the. Once you get an image that's at least 960 pixels wide, right-click on it and say Copy Image, and then go back to Photoshop and do Edit, Paste. Now, clearly, your image is going to be way huger than your little thing here. I'm just going to move. You can click on your arrow tool, your move tool, top left corner, and just move your image around until you see like some portion of your image in here. Or if you're handy with Photoshop, you can shrink it, do whatever you want. It's a pretty thin little sliver that we have there, right? So now I have some cow eyes looking out at me. Now, of course, you can click on your text tool if you want, which is the T on the left-hand side, and click in some white or light area of your image, or even a dark area, and use light text. And you can drag out a text box and type something in here that would presumably be the name of your website, right? So I clicked on my type tool. I'm dragging out a text box, and I'm just going to call this Cows Inc. Okay, and I'm going to highlight it and make it larger. Don't worry if you're not a Photoshop expert. This is just we're just playing around here, creating a mock-up of a header, right? So now I've got some text there, Cows Inc., and I've got my image, right? So go ahead and just get something. It doesn't have to be, God's gift to graphic design. Just something, a placeholder, right? Now, once you've got this thing that you're going to use, I want you to go to your File menu up at the top, click on File, and then I want you to come down and choose Save for Web. Okay, so File, Save for Web. I'll go through this again for those of you that are finishing off your designs. File, Save for Web, and then you'll get this window that pops up. You want to make sure in the upper right-hand corner that you're saving it as a JPEG. When you save images for the web, you have an option of what you're going to save them for out of Photoshop. You can save them as JPEGs, as GIFs, and as PNGs, and as bitmaps, which is the W right down there. JPEGs are the best thing to use for images like photographic images. GIFs are very good for Illustrator type of files, drawings, and PNGs are used for images that have transparent backgrounds. We're going to go ahead and use JPEG. As far as the quality goes, right up here it says quality. Mine is defaulting to 100. Yours might default to 60. You can click on that drop-down menu next to quality, and you can move this little slider here. As you move it to the left, the quality of the image decreases. Right now it's at 28. And if you look in the lower left corner of your window, the file size decreases too. So there's a direct relation to how big a file is and how good it looks, right? So in other words, this cow picture at a quality of 28, which is pretty poor quality, is only 7K and is going to load up in 2 seconds, right? If I take my slider here and I move it all the way to the right to 100, now it's 65K, much, much higher, and it's going to take 13 seconds to load, right? That's more than 6 times as much. Now, if you're wondering what would be a good quality to use, I wouldn't recommend necessarily using 100% quality on every image because your web pages will get very big and heavy and be slow to download. What I tend to use is something in the 80-85% range, because what that is it's good enough quality and the file size is not too huge. I think Photoshop defaults to 60, but I've noticed that there's something called a JPEGiness, a blockiness of images at 60, and I'm not crazy about that. Okay, so once you get your image quality set, go down to the lower right corner and click on the Save button. Now, in the window that comes up, you're going to have to navigate to the folder that you made on this computer. So you're going to have to click over here on Computer. Of course, I'm on a desktop, so it looks a little different. You're going to have to click on Computer and then User Files and then find your folder. In my case, I'm going to go into Desktop and My Sites. you're going to want to go inside your Project 1 folder, and then you're going to want to click that little icon of a folder up at the top and create a new folder, and you're going to want to call it Images with a lowercase I. So once again, navigate on your computer to Computer, User Files, Your Folder, Project 1, then inside Project 1 create a new folder, call it Images with lowercase I, and then go ahead and save your image in here as header.jpg. Hit your save button. Okay? So now, if we go back to Dreamweaver, go ahead and click on your little Dreamweaver button at the bottom of your screen. You should have a new folder which appears over here called Images. And if you hit this little round circle with the arrow on the end of it, it will refresh your files, and you'll see a little triangle appear next to it. And if you open that up, then you're going to see your header.jpg file is inside your Images folder. Is there anyone who didn't get that?
I think I got it.
So you just go File, Save for Web, Save. You called it header? You called
Oh,
your.
I was stressed because I was behind.
Oh, okay, I see. Okay, we're gonna make a folder called Images. Okay, now we're gonna open that up, and we're gonna save that in there. Okay, so now we go back to Dreamweaver and refresh. We're gonna just delete this. Okay, so there it is, right? Okay. Okay, who else, Frank? You got it? Okay, so now we're back in Dreamweaver, and we can see our little header image right in here, right? Now what we're going to do is we're now going to place this header image inside the header of our HTML web page. So over on the left-hand side, let's go back to source code. Okay, and let's scroll down until we can see the code which represents the header. So div ID equals header, and then /div. We're going to take our mouse and we're going to click right in between the beginning and the end div tags. And when I say that, I mean right between the div ID equals header and the /end div, right? So your flashing cursor should be right there, right? Now what we're going to do is we're going to go up to the top of Dreamweaver and click on Insert, and then come down to Image. And it will open up a little window. We want to navigate into our Project 1 folder. We want to navigate into our Images folder, and we want to click on header.jpg. Then we want to click on the Open button in the lower right-hand corner. Now, after you do that, it's going to come up with a little window here asking for alternate text, right? And let's just go ahead and put in whatever the name of your website might be. Like in my case, it's going to be Cows Inc. And then hit OK. Now, if you've done it properly, what will happen is some code will drop in here between your begin header and end header divs, and it will start with imgsrc, which stands for image source equals, and then it will have a path to your images folder and to the header.jpg file, which you dropped in there. It will show the width and the height, and it will also show what's called your alt text, which is the name of your image, right? Now, if you click on the design button at the top left of your window, you should see your header appear at the top of your web page. Anybody having problems with that? Okay, I'll come back and help you with yours. All right. Okay, so we've got the header in there, and we have a background color. We're well on our way, right? Now, you can, of course, make this header anything you want, use any program you want. All you have to do is ultimately save it at this file size, which is 960 by 100, at 72 pixels per inch, and drop it into your images folder, and then you will be able to insert it into your web page, just like this, right? Okay, now the next thing we're going to do is we're going to drop some content into this main area here. Now, when you guys do your final project ones, I would like you to use real text in the website itself. Today we're going to use something called lorem ipsum text, which is just fake text. You guys have heard of it probably. But when you turn it in, please use real text, right? So what we're going to do, we're going to go out onto the web, and we're going to go to a website called lipsum.com, lipsum.com, which stands for lorem ipsum, which is just a term for Greek text. It just means fake text that you can use to fill up a page, right? Now what I'd like you to do is scroll down a little bit, and on the right-hand side, click on the button called Generate Lorem Ipsum. And what it will do is it will spit out a page that just has garbage text on it, like fake Latin text, right? Now what I'd like you to do is come down to the main text area of this page and highlight the first 2 paragraphs of text, right-click on them, and choose Copy. First 2 paragraphs of text, right-click on them and choose Copy. Now go back to Dreamweaver, click on the Dreamweaver button at the bottom of your screen, go back to the split screen view, and in the code, navigate down to the main section of your website. It's the section that has the red headline text in it, right? Now, what I would like you to do, because we don't want our text in here to be read, is I would like you to delete the code that we put in before, which starts with the word class and ends with red headline quote. So in other words, highlight everything from class through red headline quote. Do not highlight the closing tag, which is the triangle at the end. Do not highlight that. If you accidentally highlight it, you're going to have to unhighlight it. So we're going to delete this text here, but leave that little closing triangle, right? Go ahead and hit delete once you've highlighted it. And that will have and then you can hit delete again if you want to move that little closing bracket over so that the div ID main is just a closed little tag there, right? The next thing I want you to do is highlight whatever the text was that you typed into that box and delete that as well. So I'm deleting my asparagus text, and what you end up with is the beginning main div and the closing main div with your flashing cursor in between them, right? Now what I'd like you to do is right-click where that flashing cursor is and say paste. Okay? Then click over on the right-hand side and check it out. You have now got text-based content inside of your main section here, right? Lorem ipsum content, so it doesn't really mean anything. Yes?
Should we use like paragraph tags or something like that?
Not yet. I mean, we'll get to that.
Sorry.
Oh, it's okay. Okay, so now let's talk about paragraph tags. Sorry, I couldn't help it. Okay. All right, so yeah, for example, if you wanted this to be multiple paragraphs, right? Right now it's just one big block. Well, we would have to choose what are going to be the paragraphs, right? So let's go back to the split screen view here. And in the case of our text here, in my text, I can actually see a paragraph. Can you guys see that in your text? Okay, but it's not showing up in the HTML because we don't have any paragraph tags. So what I want you to do is highlight that first paragraph. In other words, everything from, and you guys should have the same thing I do, everything from lorem ipsum all the way down to in a nunc, right? And then there's a space after it. So go ahead and highlight all of that. Then I want you to come down to this, what's called the properties box at the bottom. On the left-hand side, you'll see the word format and a box that says none. I want you to click on the drop-down menu that says none, and I want you to choose paragraph. Now, unfortunately, it didn't quite work. What it did was it put our begin paragraph symbol, which is the P, inside of the brackets, up at the top at lorem ipsum, but it put the NP symbol down here at the end of retrum, right? Retrum. And what we actually wanted was we wanted it up here, right? So what I need you to do now is highlight this close P tag, and you can either cut and paste it or you can actually move it. This is how you move it. You highlight it, you click on it with your mouse, left click on it, and you drag it to where you want it to go, and it moves there. Once again, highlight it, click on it with your mouse, move it to where you want it to go, and let go of it. Now if that doesn't work, you can right click and hit cut and then click up here where you want and click paste. Okay, now we have created one paragraph. Let's now highlight the second block of text, which starts with NAM and end at Redrum, and hit your refresh button if you have to down at the bottom. Click on the Format None and choose Paragraph again, and this time it does work. This time it puts the paragraph tags, it wraps that paragraph in paragraph tags. Now if we go look at our design view, we see that now we do in fact have two paragraphs. Okay, so that's great. We have paragraphs, but what's the issue right here with the way this looks?
It's justified left.
It's justified left, and it's pressed right up against the wall of the div, which looks kind of poopy, right? Okay, so what do we want to do?
Indent.
We want to add some space so that, I mean, it's literally crushed up against this wall, but it's also crushed up against this wall too, right?
Yeah.
So we want to create space on both sides and even at the top and the bottom so that the text never hits the walls of the div, right? Now we do that by adding a special attribute to the div itself. Does anybody know what that is? What's that? It's called padding. Okay? So padding is the attribute that we're going to add to this div. If we add padding to the div, it will add extra space to the div, both in the width and the height. So we'll actually have to reduce the width and the height to make up for the padding, right? So let's see what I mean by that. Let's go back to our style sheet, style.css. Excuse me. Sorry. Just like to wake you up every now and then. Okay, and let's scroll down to our main area here. Okay, so here is the code for our main div, right? We can see the background color, the fact that it's floating left, and the height and the width, right? I want you to take your mouse and I want you to click after the very last line of width right there. So click your mouse right after the semicolon after the 760 pixels. Then hit your enter button. Okay, we get our fabulous code hints. Go ahead and hit the letter P. And then double click on the word padding. So it's going to bring up padding, and padding of course is space inside of a div which pushes the content in away from the walls. Now let's go ahead and hit our space bar and type 10px, which stands for pixels, and then hit the semicolon. Now before we go any further, if we left it like this, it would break your design, because we've just added 10 pixels on the left, 10 pixels on the right, 10 pixels on the top, and 10 pixels on the bottom. And if we do that without adjusting the width and the height, it's going to break the design because the design is set up with very specific numbers. So now what we have to do is adjust the height and the width. Well, since we added 10 pixels to the right and 10 pixels to the left and right, we now have to reduce the width of this by 20 pixels. So where it says 760, let's change it to 740. And because we added 10 pixels to the top and 10 to the bottom, we have to take what off the height? 20. So now the height becomes 380. Now after you've made those adjustments, you can click on your design button at the top, and now you can see that there's a 10 pixel margin, or padding I should say, from the left and the right. Does anybody have a problem with that?
Full of it tonight.
Okay, I'll come back and help you on that break.
And it's just actually regarding the header that we put in. Why did we not place it as a background image as opposed to?
Because we're not there yet.
Okay.
Yeah, that'll come. Okay, so we've got our text in here. It looks much nicer than it did before. It's pushed away from the edges. The next thing we want to be able to do is put an image in here and have the text nicely wrap around it. Okay? So what we're going to do, we're going to go back to our trusty Google. And we're going to search for an image. It can be something that has to do with the image you put in the top. I'm just going to look for a pig because cows and pigs go together. And this time what you want is you want a small image. An image that's maybe 200 or 250 pixels wide, right? And of course, if you go to Google and you search for, you put in a topic here and you click images, you can then click on search tools over on the right, and then you can come down here and you can click on size, and you can come down to exactly, and you can put in whatever width you want. In my case, I'm going to put 250 pixels. You could put anything from 150 to 300, and it's going to bring back everything that has a width of that. So I'm going to go for this little pig here. Let's see. Oh, that's a big pig. Okay, is this one 250? All right. So you want to go save image. You want to right-click on your image, do save image as, and then you want to navigate to your folder, to your images folder inside your project folder. So in your case, you're going to choose computer, user files, your folder, and then your project 1 folder, and then the images folder. In my case, I'm going onto my desktop, I'm going into my sites, project 1, images, and then you're going to want to give this a name, not images.jpg. I'm going to call mine pig.jpg. And you're going to want to save that inside of your folder. Now you're going to want to go back to Dreamweaver, and you can hit the little refresh arrow, the round arrow, or the round circle with the arrow on the end of it, hit refresh, and now you should see your second file inside the images folder. In this case, mine's called pig.jpg. Okay? Now, in order to get this file inside of here, what we're going to do is we're going to take our mouse and we're going to click right before the first letter of the text. So here where it says lorem, we're going to click right before the L. Then we're going to go up and click Insert at the top drop down, and then Image. We're going to go into our Images folder, and we're going to click on the image we just downloaded, and hit Open. When the alt text comes up, we can put in the name of that image. I'm calling mine Pig. And then we can hit OK, and now your image will come up, and it will do something strange with the text. Don't worry. If it looks like this, you're doing it exactly right. We haven't made it wrap yet. How are we doing? Now, if you get an image that's way too big, you can click on the handles in the corner and drag it in until it's small enough. Okay?
Insert image.
I'm sorry, question?
Insert image.
Insert image, yes.
It just says image options.
No, you okay. You gotta go out of live mode. You can't be in live mode, and then just do insert image like that. By the way, you can't be in live mode here when you're designing. It won't work. Okay, so now we've got our little image in there. The next thing we want to do is we want to go ahead and wrap this text so that it will move around it, right? So what we're going to do is we're going to go click on our code button, our split screen button actually, and then we're going to click on source code so that we can see div, scroll down till you see div ID equals main, and then you see this image source code that says, images. In my case it says pig, right? And then what we're going to do is we're going to click after the name of the image, so right where those quotes are at the very end where it says alt equals and then it has the name of your image in quotes, click your cursor in right after the name of the image, but right before the / and the end tag, right? So once again, we went into the main area, we found the image, we clicked at the very end after the name of the image that's in quotes, but before the / and the end angle bracket. Now you're going to hit your space bar once, and you're going to type style equals quote float colon left semicolon end quote. Style equals quote float colon left semicolon end quote. Now what this is actually CSS. This is what's called inline CSS. So instead of being on the style sheet, we've actually put it in line with the code here. Now after you've done that, go ahead and click over in this window right here, and your text should wrap around your image. And the reason it wraps around it is because we told the image, we used the float positioning statement to move the image to the left and have it float there while the text wraps around it. So if I go here to my design view, we see that the text is wrapping around it. Now, it is wrapping around it, but what is the issue here? There's no padding to keep this text away from the edge of the pig, right? So let's go back to our split screen view here. Let's go back to that text we just typed and click before the final quote mark. In other words, click your cursor right between the semicolon and the final quote mark. Hit your space bar and type the words padding dash right colon 10px semicolon. Now, by the way, if you got a little lost or you're just taking notes, this video will be up on the website, so you'll be able to recreate this on your own. And on the break, I'll help anybody that has questions. Okay, now, when you're done with this, go ahead and click your design button. And now we see that the text has nicely moved around the pig. Okay, starting to look more like a website? Okay, now there's just two more things we're going to do, and then we're done. And you guys will be free to go. We're going to do the two more things, and then I'm going to show you the assignments sheet, which is the assignment of Project 1, right? So let's do the next thing, which is we're going to put in a sidebar. You guys are going to love this because it's so easy, right? So if we look over here on the right-hand side and look at our sidebar, there's absolutely nothing in there, right? But what we want to put in is a little fake navigation system. The cool thing is we're going to go ahead and get that from a website. So I want you to go back out to Google. And in Google's search box, I want you to type the word List-O-Matic. Listmatic, and do a search for that. Then go ahead and click on the top return for that. List-O-Matic is a website that is composed entirely of navigation bars. HTML and CSS code for navigation bars that you can use for free on your sites. Did you go to Google? Okay. There we go. Okay. Now, what we're going to do is we're simply going to go down here to the one called Simple List, the very first one, Vertical List, Simple List. Now, on your own, you guys can come back here and play around and get more complex lists if you want. But we're going to click on Simple List. We're going to see this list here that has these bullet points and these different items which could be turned into web pages like home, galleries, services, about, contact, right? I want you to scroll down to the big white box where it says HTML, and then I want you to highlight everything from this div that says div ID equals nav container all the way down to the end div tag in this HTML section. Right-click on it and click on Copy. So we've just grabbed their code, and they've given it to us for free. Now go back to Dreamweaver, go into your split screen view, and click on Source Code on the left-hand side, and scroll all the way down until you see the word Sidebar. This sidebar div here. And click your cursor right in between the Begin Sidebar and the End Sidebar divs. Once it's in there, right-click and choose Paste. Then click over in the right-hand window and click on Design, and you'll now see that you have a navigation bar. Okay, it's very simple. It's not going to win any design awards. You might have a little anchor tag, a little anchor image right here. Don't worry about that. That's just some extra code that won't show up on your web page. Now we are about 95% done with this page. We just have one thing left. Let's go back to the split screen view and let's scroll down to where it says footer, and let's click our mouse between the begin footer div and the end footer div. Now what I would like you to do is go up to the top of your window and click Insert. Come down to HTML, it's about 3/4 of the way down. Come down to Special Characters, and then come over and click on Copyright. So Insert HTML Special Characters Copyright. Okay? Once you click on that, it's going to put what's called a special character in here, which is ampersand copy semicolon. And we'll see what that is in just a second. Once that's in there, hit your space bar, type the number 2014, and then put your name. Okay? Now, if you right-click over in your window and look at the text there, you'll see, what did the special character make? A copyright symbol. And by the way, in that special characters section, insert HTML special characters, there are all of these different things, copyright, registered trademark, euro, and you can click on other, and it will bring up a window that will bring up all of these symbols, which are used for different languages and different signs like trademark and pound and things like that. And by clicking on any one of these letters here, like a letter A with a French accent on it, it will then pop up the special character that you will then put in to your code, and when you hit OK, it will drop that into your code. Okay? So we just put in a copyright symbol. Okay, now the last thing we're going to do is we're going to center that copyright text, because right now it's just flush left, which is the default, right? So we're going to add another inline style. Come down to where it says div ID equals footer and click your cursor between the final quote and the end angle bracket. Hit your space bar. Type the word style equals quote text dash align colon space center semicolon quote. Style equals quote text dash align colon center semicolon end quote. Then go ahead and click in your window on the right and click your design view, and your text should be centered. Now, of course, if you want to move it down a little bit, you can click your cursor right in front of it and hit your enter button, and it will push down to the bottom of the footer. Now, go ahead and do File, Save All, and you can click in Dreamweaver here on this little image of the globe here, the world. Click on that, choose a web browser. In my case, I chose Firefox, and then it will preview your web page. Now, this is Project 1. Project 1 is for you to make a web page from the template that we designed together, to put in a header, to put in an image with text that wraps around it, to put in a navigation bar, a footer, and a background color. Now, please, do not turn in what you have in front of you. That would be scary. And I'm not going to turn this in, I promise. But these are all the requirements for Project 1. Now all you have to do is redo it in a way that is much more appealing. So if I go to the website and click on Project 1 on today's class, this is the Project 1 assignment. Create a folder in your Dreamweaver Sites folder called Project 1, your last name. Use the template you created with div tags. Add the following elements: a container, a graphic image header, a navigation bar that you can get from List-O-Matic, a main content area that has text and an image, and the text wraps around the image due to a float. Copyright, a background color, and then you can play with the fonts and the colors if you want. Now when you're all done, you're going to save all these files inside that folder, and you're going to turn that folder into me next Tuesday. And you're going to drop it into my network drive, and I'll show you how to do that next week. Now, what I would like you to do is decide on a theme for your website, and then make everything on your website fit that. So for example, if this was a website that was selling, natural feed products for cows and pigs, then it might make sense to have the cow, and maybe there'd be another cow here, and then I would add some text in here, text I generate myself or I get from some other resource that has to do with the product I'm selling. I might put a fake company name up here and then say copyright fake company name down there, and then put some names in here like gallery services, pricing, contact about, just fake navigation bar that doesn't go anywhere. Okay? So your assignment is to make one page, to use this as the template, and to redo it so it looks like a real web page. Okay. Are there questions about that? Yes?
Your website, is it linked somewhere else, or is it just have to go to your website?
My website is linked in somewhere else. You just kind of have to know where it is. It says it on the syllabus, but it's located at dreamco.com/PIMA. And then what you do once you get there, you go to the left-hand side, you click on DAR 256 Beginning Dreamweaver. We're in week 4, and it says we're going to go over Project 1 in class. You click on Project 1, and it brings up a PDF that I just showed you, which tells you everything you need to know, and that this is due next week. Now, we will be looking at these in class. We'll be giving creative criticism, constructive criticism. We won't be tearing them down or anything, just to help people learn how to make web pages. Also, please continue to read and do the work in your chapters so you can stay on top of the terminology and the things we're learning in class. Okay, so once again, that is your assignment. I'm going to go ahead and, does anybody have any questions before I stop the video? Yes?
Should we think about maybe, like, using this as maybe our homepage for what might be the next project?
Yes, that's a great idea. Because, just so you know, the projects just increase in size, but they're all web projects. So your project, there's 3 projects. Project 1 is this. You learn a bunch more, and then you do a 3-page website that has, obviously it's much more sophisticated. And your final project is to do a 5-page website. Now, you could make each one of these websites completely different if you want, or as Frank said, you could build them all into something very large, like maybe you want to make a portfolio site of your work, maybe you want to make a site for your mom's car wash, maybe you want to make a fake business site for your portfolio. Whatever you want to do. Like I said, they can all be building upon the same theme, or they can be 3 completely different websites. Okay? Other questions? Thought I saw a hand. Yes? Yes,
Yeah,
Lewis.
I got some code that I try to center it,
Okay,
and there's some.
so there's an error code. Okay, and I'll help you with that.
All right.
I'll help you, and if you have questions too, I'll help you. Any other questions about the assignment? Okay, I'm going to go ahead and stop the video.